Chers amis, bienvenue dans l'autre émission de Mozayk. Et vous connaissez Mozayk, c'est une émission côté de Belmoun, à parler de tout et de rien. M'a dit aujourd'hui à sujet que n'a traité aujourd'hui vraiment pas rien qui comique là-dedans. C'est vraiment sérieux. Et même moi-même qui dépasse 33 ans en Haïti, ça m'attendait aujourd'hui à vérité qui a sorti. Que n'attendait petit à petit, il vient vraiment triste. Moi j'ai invité comme je dis, alors moi j'ai mis les lunettes là pour que bien les quatre là parce que vous connaissez Valerie m'a songé, même Valerie Dirksen qui a invité moi. C'est en anglais n'a parlé parce que Valérie c'est américain lié, mais elle travaille pour aider Timoun à travers le monde, l'exploitation de Timoun. Valerie, welcome to ITTV and to Mozayk, my show. I want to congratulate on the work that you've been doing, and I'm happy that you're able to come and share the information with us about what you have found out so far and what you're working on. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, and it is an important subject. It's something that's near and dear to my heart, so thank you for your time.
As soon as I heard yesterday about what you're working on, I said, my God, I mean, this is crazy. Let's start with the first conversation. It's basically an orphanage that took fire. If you can give me the details of that, because I think from that, as people started learning more about it, it became a kind of maybe you want to call it a black hole into a whole different world that nobody seems to understand. Not only is it happening in Haiti, but it's controlling the Haitian politics. And so forth. So tell me a little bit about that incident.
Well, on February 13th, it was a Thursday evening, about 8 o'clock, there was a fire at an orphanage in Fermat, up in the mountains north of Pétionville. And the orphanage was an unlicensed orphanage since 2013. It had not been able to be licensed because of all the continual violations that they had. So we had advocates go in there and look at the conditions, and they were deplorable conditions. And what struck ICRAS and the other advocates was the fact that this orphanage had collected $6 million, according to their 990s, the previous year. They had expenses of $2.2 million, which would mean there was $3.8 million left over for...
Now, explain to me something. We're talking about Haiti.
Correct.
You're talking about an orphanage generating $6 million in revenue?
Correct.
From donations?
Correct, and they're all tax-free. It's a 10-9. It's a 501c3, so it's all tax-free, unregulated aid that's flooding in, and many of the advocates believe that this is an easy way to launder money. Okay, so that's.
So in other words, they're using this orphanage that had how many children?
Different numbers, 60 children at one point. There's two homes that they have. One is in Kenskoff and one is in Fermat. The one in Fermat was where the fire took place.
And so they've got a revenue of $6 million in 1 year, and that's to manage 60 children in Haiti that are usually fed, maïs moulin and I mean, no, they're not eating lobster every day. So, and we know what it takes to have people working in Haiti, the minimum wage that is offered for people to cook and clean and keep the boys safe. How can they justify a $6 million type of revenue? And the cost was what?
Their expenses were according to the 990s, were $2.2 million, and they had, according to the 990s, they had $8 million in assets. Among those assets were 5 airplanes.
And this is an orphanage in Haiti, and who was the Haitian representative of that orphanage?
It was a guy by the name of Brother Paul. He, rather than face charges, because ICRAS joined forces with CALSDH to demand a hearing about this negligence. We felt criminal negligence on the part of Bien-être Social, on the part of the orphanage operators, and we felt that someone needed to speak on behalf of these orphaned and abandoned children. And so we early on, it happened on a Thursday, we became aware by one of our victims we're working with on another case, that there were burn victims at the Baptist mission in Fermat. And that I said, well, what type of burn? Is there like a blister on a leg or something, or are they like charcoal? And he said they were in a lot of pain. That, burns are the problem with burns are secondary infections. So they're very aware of how I feel about medical care and so forth, which is a whole other. We could talk for 4 hours on that. So they said I needed to do something. So I immediately went into action and tried to get an ambulance up there. And by the time my advocates arrived, the victims had been shipped out. And the person responsible at the Baptist mission had no idea where they were shipped to. So we, to this day, don't really know, because the reports and the people responsible for the orphanage are having a hard time keeping the story straight.
But where's this Brother Paul?
Brother Paul, rather than face the hearing, went evacuated to the United States. They are headquartered in Scranton, Pennsylvania. They have been in Scranton, Pennsylvania for many years. They were, back in the 90s, they were charged in New York State with trafficking, because they took homeless people from Hell's Kitchen, and they were having them clean people's carpets, and they were underselling the carpet cleaners because all money goes to this commune. It goes to the common good. And the other carpet cleaners, their competitors, complained to the Attorney General's office, and then they came up with an agreement that they could keep $10 of the $120 or whatever that they were charging, and that the rest went to their overhead, and it was squalid conditions. These were mostly homeless people, maybe on drugs or whatever. And so that was an agreement that they were able to reach, because these people are very far-reaching.
So you're talking about the people that owned that orphanage?
Yes.
Are people that had those type of issues in the United States. How did they get the authorization to have an orphanage in Haiti?
Well, apparently in the catalog of things to do, Haiti is on the #1 target, because they have over 750 orphanages, of which only 35 are licensed.
So today there's 750 orphanages in Haiti. Only 35 are licensed by the United States or by Haiti?
By Haiti, but the sticky wicket is most of them are American. However, there's French and Canadian as well. But the sticky wicket with the American ones is the fact that they are supposed to be registering with the United States Embassy. The U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Prince is supposed to register these. So in other words, if you go down there to open an orphanage, or if I go down there, I have to go register with the U.S. Embassy to make sure that I'm following protocol, because they are 501c3s, they're nonprofits. And so there has to be some type of accountability, and what we've discovered in our travels is there is no accountability, and no one's looking out for the children, which is our main concern.
Now, as the investigation of this, if I believe 15 children died in the fire.
15 to 20. 2 of them were handicapped, and they were just, it's very suspect, and we tried to get investigators in. We did have an instruction judge. We go in there, and he conducted an investigation under very extreme conditions, because these people that are in this orphanage is represented legally by an attorney that's very powerful. His name is Mr. Favory. Mr. Favory also represents the Palace for Legal Services.
Yeah,
so,
Février, that's the attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, he's not really letting you have access to these people?
Well, he early on had a conference with these parents, and he suggested that they could get $150, maybe buy some new clothes, and they'll bury the children. And so our advocates through Cause d'Ache and Maisonneuve, and I have a representative in Haiti, Sanson Dumais, we were able to negotiate for a much higher settlement. However, I'm here, and this is a very ugly subject. And so with the COVID, I haven't been able to go back down there, but truthfully, what they settled for should have been a lot higher. And my big...
So how can they offer $150 to the parents? This is an orphanage.
Correct.
So if these are orphans, why did they know what the parents are? Or that's just because the parents can't afford to have these children, and they bring them to the orphanage?
Yes. So most of the orphans in Haiti at these homes, these children's homes, are actually abandoned. They have at least one parent. But because of the abstract poverty that we find in Haiti, we don't have a foster system, which it's really created a public health crisis, a mental health crisis, because now we're raising children in institutions, and there is no thought given to critical thinking skills, making sure academically they're up to speed. That, you know, there's a lot of issues with abandoning a child at the doorsteps of a place like this orphanage. And I know I've dealt with a lot, I've spoken to a lot, I've spent a lot of time in Haiti speaking to these victims, and with my other case that I have that I'm involved in. And my goal is to have the orphanages go out of business or be better regulated. I feel like I met with Marco Rubio's office, his legislative aide, to talk about the other case that I was working on. This is a couple years ago. And they sent me an email and they said, listen, Valerie, not to worry. We, through the Appropriations Committee, have just given $24 million to IBESR, Bien-Être Social, who's in charge of the children's social services in Haiti. And they're going to handle it.
Right.
And
the Haitian Affaires Sociales is going to handle it.
And nothing was handled.
$24 million.
And nothing.
But how many orphanages, do you really believe that orphanage that had the fire was with that kind of revenue, were they involved in trafficking? Do you believe that they were involved in trafficking of organs or sex traffic? What do you think was going on?
We believe, our advocates believe, based on the photos that were shared with us and the protection and the refusal to do the autopsies, we, COSDH and ICRAS, filed a motion with the judge and got approval that we should have those children autopsies to find out exactly how they died. And they refused access to the children. And there was one person in particular, one doctor in particular. I even contacted Dr. Wazel in Pittsburgh. He's a #1 pathologist in the country, or in the world. He goes around the world, Africa and everything. He said, Valerie, that is, it's unbelievable. It's just, who wouldn't want to know, and who's preventing you from having an autopsy to find out exactly what happened and how they died? And clearly it was a cover-up, because we, in good faith, tried to march forward. We couldn't, and then at the end of the day, everybody was afraid to get involved, and so, you know, time marches on. This was February 13th, which is a special day on the calendar of people on the dark side. So when there were 13 bodies in the photo, the trafficking experts that I've shown the photos with and shared it with, we believe that they were actually given the puffer fish powder, because what they can do with that is then they can, you go into a deep coma.
Yeah, they zombify them.
Yes, but you're still aware of what's happening, and we believe that they were organ trafficked based on those.
So what was going on, you believe, in this orphanage, and possibly in many more, because there's 750 orphanages in Haiti, of which only 35 are authorized by the Haitian government, which still doesn't mean anything, but the bottom line is at least they've got some kind of regulation that are supposed to be visited and checked out. So 750 orphanages, most of them from the United States, and no regulation. We believe that one was involved in trafficking of organs. So they would take the organs out of the children and sell them?
Correct. It's a multi-million-dollar business internationally.
But doesn't that take don't you need doctors and surgeons as part of the team to remove the organs, or do you need to kill the children first? Which are the organs that they're getting so much money for?
Okay, so like kidneys are $300,000, and there's a huge demand for kidneys. The other thing is,
kidney of a child of what age?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Oh, it could be
any child.
2, 3-year-old, 5-year-old child.
Yes, 6, 7, 10 years old. Nice developed.
That would be sold for $300,000, and that would be given to maybe an elderly person who's got liver issues,
or even a younger person. There's a large population, especially one of the largest markets is North America for these organs. And I know people who have had organ transplants. I know someone who used to run an organ transplant clinic at Piedmont Hospital. The medicine to accept the kidney is very expensive, and it's very laborious to keep the kidney that's come from a stranger into your body. They put it on the front. They don't put it back. With the damaged kidney. I know someone who had 2 transplants. The thing about Haiti and Haitians that makes them attractive in the organ industry is the fact that they mostly have O positive blood. Additionally, most of their organs are very strong. So they're good candidates. They're not some weak AB blood person that's, very high level, whatever.
Which is actually the blood type that is resistant to COVID-19 too.
O positive?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. But then,
interesting.
Don't take it from me, I'm not a doctor.
Well, interesting because COVID has not really hit Haiti.
It hit, but it didn't score a lot of deaths. It almost was very weak in Haiti.
Very weak.
Compared to you would think with those living conditions and everybody's on top of each other, and et cetera, and nobody has money forget about masks. Nobody's got money for anything to even
hand
soap.
Sanitizer and yes.
Yeah, and you would have thought that half the population of Haiti would be, taken by COVID-19 and not. So there is a resistance, and I think it's from the type O. So we're talking about Americans harvesting Haitian children through orphanages for organs. So this is an actual investigation that is going on. But we're talking about support or protection from the Haitian government, which is probably coming from someone in the U.S., because nothing happens in Haiti without the U.S. putting their imprint. So where do you think that goes? When did this start where you believe, at what point do you believe in the American power system that we get to the point where there's somebody on top allowing this to happen?
So this didn't happen overnight. Much like the sands of a beach come on very slowly, same thing happened in Haiti, and it's just been a slow progression into where we find them today. I was just there in March, so I speak from pretty fresh experience as to what's happening. It's the worst I've ever seen Haiti, and it's so sad because I'm very sensitive to all of these situations. You can't walk down the street without feeling what's happening. So there is a hospital that's in Mirabelais, that's run by Partners in Health. Partners in Health is connected to the Clinton Foundation. It's run by Paul Farmer. Paul Farmer was at Harvard. He's the Clinton sweetheart.
So Paul Farmer, a close partner of the Clintons, runs a hospital in Mirabelais, which has the doctors and all the surgery necessary to do the removal of the transplants or removal of the body parts to be sold.
Correct. It's the number 1 hospital in terms of accreditation or whatever in Haiti. I believe it's the only one. And if you look at their numbers that they post, I believe it was $97 million is their budget for last year. It's interesting because a lot of the poor Haitians that have to go there, I happen to know one who had fibroids that went there that was being treated incorrectly at the Baptist Mission. They went there, and only from my intervention were they not charged. Normally they would have been charged. Same thing at the Baptist Mission. The Baptist Mission collects all these millions of dollars to help the poorest of the poor, and in fact that poor woman was in there for over 30 days at $5 a day, has to pay for plastic gloves. The son, who was like 20 years old, is trying to figure out how to go to downtown Haiti to get blood from the Red Cross. I'm like, how can they ask you to transport blood to Fermat? You don't have a transportation? How do you know it's still going to be good? I mean, it's hot in Haiti, and he had to buy the blood. So all this money is coming in, And they're still asking the poor Haitians to contribute. So it doesn't really add up. And so I believe that's one of the hospitals. I think there's other hospitals, but it takes a special surgeon to be able to harvest these organs.
Where are the news organizations? Where's 60 Minutes? Where are all these, 2020? Where are all these investigative journalists that you're not the only one talking about this. I'm sure this is a lot of information out there. Why are they not in Haiti right now? I mean, they love to go to Haiti whenever something blows up, whenever they have something negative to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But why are they not over there doing a story on the Paul Farmer hospital or this orphanage that burned that was involved in that trafficking? And then on top of that, there is the pedophile situation, which is one of your main work that you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about how bad is the pedophile situation with Americans coming to commit pedophilia on Haitian boys. Tell us about that.
Well, that's a big can of worms that you're opening up right there. This has been happening for a long period of time. Like I said, the sands didn't come up on the beach overnight. I mean, it was slow progression. I have spoken to a Homeland Security agent that told me you could shoot a rocket down Main Street in Haiti and hit several pedophiles. Unfortunately, most of the pedophiles, they're dressing as clergy, as priests, as missionaries. I am so sensitive to this and so aware of all the signs that I can't sit on an airplane. I really practically have to self-medicate and become immersed in a book because I hear it all, I see it all. You know, you're not helping Haiti by going down there to stay at an orphanage that there's no background check on you. I don't know if you were on the predator list or whatever. No background checks have been done, and you're having full access to children. I get contacted, like I said, I was there in March after my conference that I went to, which I was recognized for my work in Haiti. I did receive an award, which I'm very grateful for. I don't need to receive an award, but I was very grateful for being recognized. Several people contacted me. They said, no one's talking about the children of Haiti. So it's near and dear to my heart because I've adopted 2 children that were at an orphanage run by an American who was accused over 10 times in 30 years of sexually, emotionally, and physically abusing the children in his care.
So we have an American,
Mm-hmm.
The name of?
Michael Geilenfeld.
Okay, Michael Geilenfeld has been running orphanage for how long in Haiti?
Over 30 years.
Over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a man who's been accused over 10 times of pedophilia.
Correct.
In the United States.
In Haiti.
In Haiti.
Mm-hmm. And also in 95 it was in Detroit in the United States.
So he was...
in Boston in 89, but I don't want to get into too many details, but yes, he's been accused here as well.
He's a pedophile since 89 in Boston, United
Before
States.
then, probably 83.
Okay, how old is he now?
He's born in 51.
51.
Mm-hmm.
So he needs to die soon, or we need to kill him soon, or maybe I'm going to send some of my Sicilian friends over there, because to me, pedophilia is unacceptable. It is punishing young children, not only sexually, but mentally for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
You're basically screwing up a child for the rest of his life, an innocent child,
Mm-hmm.
which are the most... So this man here, where is he today?
Well, that's a good question. So I have a group, let's call them, they have multiple generations. My youngest group of generations, when I went down in 1995, they had been kicked out of the house in 2014 because they refused to sign statements in favor of Michael, saying, I fill in the blank, I victim 1, have lived at Michael's house since I was 8 years old. I've gotten nothing but wonderful food, clothing, we play soccer. He's a wonderful Ange Michel. Each one of my sons of Dessalines, who are my heroes, which is why I'm here today, each one said, not signing it. You've already collected money for our school from donors. We happen to know that school's about to start. We're all about school because the only way out of this shitstorm, excuse me for saying it like that, is our education. And so we're very serious. We just want to go to school. Just leave us alone. Let us graduate, and we'll call it a day. You're not going to kick us out. He said, you either sign it or we're going to kick you out. We had a judge there with a clerk of the court. And he said, okay, well, I'll give you till Sunday. This was a Saturday. The court's not open. We hired a judge to go to Fermat from Patientville. You know what that's called? Corruption. Out of her jurisdiction, and a woman to boot. And we're not doing it. So Sunday came, 5 o'clock, and Michael kicked them out of the house.
Now, we're going to continue. I'm taking a pause. And we're going to go deep into this because we know about the priest. We know about that's an issue worldwide. But when you have an American running a pedophilia vacation farm and he is protected by the U.S. government, we got to talk about that. We'll be right back. On va tourner après un petit moment avec commanditaire nous qui a une émission ça possible. Valerie, we'll be right back.
Okay.
Nous tournons nous back with Valerie. Valerie, thank you again. Mes amis, information web jeune là, c'est vraiment extrêmement important pour comprendre à quel point la corruption haïtienne et la corruption de la politique américaine a ruiné depuis des années pays que nous aimons en pays. I kind of expressed the corruption, mental corruption, financial corruption, moral corruption from Americans, Haitians, allowing these incredible things to happen. And it's always the poor and, I mean, where's Black Lives Movement right now? How about Haitian lives? I mean, Haitians' life matter. Well, where are they not upset about this? Now, we go back to the gentleman that has escaped. Why has he not been arrested? And what is the American Embassy doing about this?
Okay, so that's a loaded question. Not a quick answer, so I'll try to give you as complete so you understand the whole scenario. So in 2015, I went down to Haiti because Michael had been in jail in the state penitentiary for 237 days before Judge Roosevelt let him out. He let him out on a technicality. An older group of victims had done the same.
That means he got paid off. He got money to let him go.
Correct.
That's how the judges function.
I'm getting to Judge Roosevelt. So, an older group of victims had done charges, pretty deep charges, and they were represented by an attorney named Emmanuel Gentil out of Cap-Haïtien. Much like an attorney out of New York and Florida, a New York attorney can practice law in Miami, but he has to attach himself to a law office in Miami. Same thing in Haiti. So Cap-Haïtien is in a different department than Port-au-Prince. So what that attorney needs to do is attach himself to a cabinet in Port-au-Prince. Makes sense, easy enough. Negligence, malpractice, whatever the term we want to use, Emmanuel Gentil did not attach his license to someone in Port-au-Prince. So ultimately that affected that group of victims. All the victims that have ever stepped forward, the 10 groups through the years, are all absolutely brave warriors. I have nothing but utmost respect. They don't understand that process. No one explained that to them, which is another thing. I think one thing we've learned, and certainly my younger group of victims, I've explained to them, you ask questions, 100 questions, you have a right to know. This is something that is not typical in Haitian society. You go to an attorney, the attorney speaks for you. He's telling you this, that, and the other. He speaks at you. He doesn't speak with you. So my victims know, if I haven't taught them anything else in these 9 years, they know you ask a million questions and you have a right. You have a good constitution. You have constitutional rights and you fight for your rights. This is what Haiti was started on. It's the best story ever told in history.
Sure.
So this is what I want them to be. I want them to grow up big, strong people. So that case went in front of it went very far because Michael was in Judge Al Dunel Dimash was the instruction judge. Dimash, good guy with the program, called Michael in many times and found probable cause to keep him incarcerated. On a Friday at 3 o'clock, Judge Roosevelt called in Michael along with 2 boyfriends that he had made in the prison, and because attorney Emmanuel Gentil was not a member of the bar in Port-au-Prince, you don't have to notify his cabinet. So what do? You go to your door and you call in the parquet like this, calling the case of, and you're like, what? Unless you happen to be standing there, you would never hear it on purpose. So they can legally say, this is what, look, this is the way the rule is. You knew that. So you misrepresented and you committed malpractice, in my opinion, of those group of victims. Called, no one appeared. No one appeared. Gentil didn't appear because he didn't know about the case. So Roosevelt dismissed it. I understand $40,000 changed hands.
Juge Roosevelt, what's his first name?
I don't know.
Juge Roosevelt, for $40,000 paid cash U.S.
Allegedly $40,000 U.S.
I'm not a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
I could say.
Mm-hmm.
What are they going to do, sue me?
Right. That's what I was told, but that's what I was told.
Okay, so he took the money and he let go, not caring about the victims, not caring about what they went through, and then let this pedophile, who needs to be shot, out.
Correct.
And then the American Embassy. How do they feel about all this?
Okay, well, what's interesting is I met with Justice Minister Casimir, good guy. I also met with, at the time, Attorney General Rudy Ali. I thought good guy. We seemed to connect. He seemed to understand what I was saying and how important this was to Haiti, for Haitians, and his responsibility as Attorney General at the time. Casimir made Michael Geilenfeld surrender his passport because a lot of resources were put into keeping him incarcerated for 237 days. You know, the Haitian justice system is, I think they used to have less than 10% prosecution rate. Now it's probably 0.001.
Yeah.
Unless your name's Favory, and then you can have a prosecution. So he surrendered the passport. Michael Geilenfeld went at the time to the then Ambassador Pamela White, and she issued him a new passport.
So Pamela White, a leftover of the Clinton administration,
Correct?
gave this gentleman, if you want to use that word.
I don't want to use that word, but okay.
We can call him a-hole,
Mm-hmm.
and gave him a way out of Haiti.
Correct.
And he will be allowed to go back to Haiti?
Correct.
So he could just continue doing his monstrosity to young children of Haiti. Pamela White don't care.
Not her kids, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. And now, what about the ambassador we have today?
Okay, so Michael came and went back. It was a big celebration, which is a stick in the eye to these victims.
So he comes back to Haiti and he's celebrated by the people that he paid off.
Correct.
So he continue his pedophilia attacks on the children of Haiti by having paid off judges, and the administration apparently doesn't care. The government, the president, those people, that's not their problem.
Not their kids.
And the American ambassador don't care. So what about the new ambassador that we have now?
So there's a couple things that happened in between. Okay, so I went down in September of 2015 to meet with these victims that had said, look, that were kicked out and said, we're not signing that. Because I had sent them with some family and friends, we had managed to rent a house for them and keep them in school because they're good kids, they're good guys. And I'm like, stay out of trouble. They did. They're good guys. I mean, they're not street kids or whatever. They deserve a chance, right? And so I met them and I told them I'm going to be meeting with the justice minister, and Stanley Lucas is the one who was supposed to set up that appointment. But then I got down there and he didn't take my phone calls. He hadn't set anything up.
So Stanley Lucas, which I know well and I've interviewed before, sent you down and then disappeared, wouldn't take your phone calls.
Correct. Now, Stanley Lucas is interesting because Stanley Lucas used to be the karate instructor for Michael.
I remember. Well, he was a karate guy. I knew him back in Haiti. That's what he was.
Right.
Then he became working for the... It was basically like a CIA organization, supposedly.
The Democratic whatever, yeah, the Republican right-wing something or other.
Yeah, he was like a right-wing guy.
But they bounced him out of there.
And he's out of that. And then for quite a while, I haven't heard too much from him. I know he was supporting Martelly.
He was a senior advisor to Martelly.
So he's a senior advisor, and he's still today a senior advisor to Martelly after all the crazy bad things that Michel Martelly did to Haiti.
He's still a senior advisor to Martelly and to Jovenel.
And to Jovenel.
Correct. The current Neg Banan.
The light bulb we have now.
Neg Banan. So the interesting thing about Stanley Lucas is, imagine going to an orphanage and being entertained by the children that live in the orphanage. So Michael put together this thing called the Resurrection Dance Theater. And some of the visitors were NAMBLA, North American Man-Boy Love Association, which wants to lower the age of consent.
So you have an organization called
NAMBLA,
which is the North American
Man-Boy Love Association.
Man-Boy Love Association.
Correct.
And this is an association which works to lower the age of consent so that adult men, I'm assuming, can have sex with children.
Correct, because it's just love. This is much like what we're seeing right now.
It's not love. You're penetrating a small child with something that shouldn't be there.
This is what they advocate for. This is what they believe.
And
they
who funds an organization like that? How can an organization like that exist?
It's a nonprofit. It was started in Rochester, New York. When the founder died, in lieu of flowers, he asked that donations be made to the St. Joseph's Home for Boys at 91 Delmas in Haiti. That's how connected they were. So the sad thing about
who supports this organization? Where do they get their funding? Where do they get their political support?
So the dark web has a lot of, I believe, pay-for-view videos of, believe it or not, I mean, I don't know how graphic you want me to get, but pretty terrible, unbelievable things.
And you think that that's done with some of the Haitian children?
Yes.
So they're going...
And African as well.
So they're in Africa, poor countries.
Correct.
Haiti.
Dominican Republic has a big problem.
Dominican Republic. And they use these orphanages to shoot these sex with children videos. And they try to legislate where sex with children is not illegal. So that way they can continue doing this for as long as they live.
Correct.
Now, there's been an effort by this president to lower the consent age.
So he just did an executive order last month, I believe, lowering...
Jovenel Moïse, president
correct,
of Haiti.
The current president, lowering the age of consent to 15, allowing bestiality, and allowing you to marry your cousin, your first cousin. Which there's certain rumors out there as to why that all happened. So getting back, I just want to, I'm sorry, but I want to get back to Stanley Lucas because I want you to understand the atmosphere in this house. So imagine you're going on a mission with 20 other children, you and another chaperone, and you're going to go to an orphanage because you're going to paint a wall, take a bunch of selfies, you're going to post them up and exploit these poor victims even further, disrespect them. And one of your entertainments is seeing two of the orphans karate chop fight each other. Okay? Now, I don't know about you, but that would really upset me. Most of these victims have severe scarring on their scalps, on their eyebrows from this fighting that's going on. And Stanley Lucas was a part of that. So Stanley Lucas knows very well. Stanley Lucas's other partner is Cyrus C. Bear. Cyrus C. Bear was involved in the Doug Perlitz case in Cap-Haitian. There was another American pedophile with Fairfield University who went down and had an orphanage there and a school and so forth, and he was sexually abusing children. There's another one in Lake High called Project Espoir, run by Father Mark Boisvert.
Well, if we take up the ladder, Jovenel was placed there by Martelly.
Correct.
And now Jovenel is there. Martelly put him there. Now, apparently they're not getting along these days, but regardless, the protection continues. The situation with all these orphanages, it continues. This man is free to continue, protected by the former American ambassador over to Haiti, and the new ambassador we have right now. What is her name?
Her name is Michelle Cison. Michelle is connected because she was put into the diplomatic corps by Clinton, President Clinton.
So we have another Clinton
and
appointee as ambassador to Haiti.
And
so how can we even consider, or now we know why Haiti is such a messed up place. The Clintons have their fingers everywhere.
Everywhere. Now, Michelle Cison has been very supportive of the current president, including through massacres, including GDPs that almost doesn't register. I think the only line item on the GDP must be the remittance from the diaspora that sends money down there, which of course I think it was $1.50. I think now it's $2. Is supposed to go towards education, but I could show you some schools that you would say, my dog has a better doghouse than these schools.
Well, of course, we know what's going on. So in essence, we're about to have an election here.
Mm-hmm.
It has been, we've seen the difficulties that Trump has had to try to get anything done.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, why has his administration not removed these leftovers from the Clinton administration, who are still creating this situation? The man, what is that organization? The Man Who Loves Boy. I mean,
Man Boy Love Association that has publications and magazines. Homeland Security, FBI, CIA. They're all aware of all this.
And they're not stopping them.
No, because they supposedly have a right to exist. They don't have a right to do the crimes, but it's this circle. It's like a lazy Susan circle. It's like we're going around in circles. The Haitians say the Americans should do it. The Americans say the Haitians should do it. And what do I have? What's Valerie have? Valerie was able to get an arrest warrant because when Michael was arrested and put in jail for 237 days, they rescinded his license. He was unlicensed, and they admitted, Bien-être social admitted that he had several complaints. They had a big file on him and this organization, his homes, squalid conditions, $10 million a year, and squalid conditions for these 3 homes. And so they said, Madame Arielle Vildouin, which I thought I had a lot of respect for her because she put her foot down. She said, look, no children are allowed in your home. No one under the age of consent at the time was 18. And we went down there in September of 15 and discovered through the victims that there were children in the home. So I went to the commissaire de gouvernement. His name is... I can't think of his name right now, but anyways, I went to him and I said, look, I'm worried. Children in his proximity are in danger. There's not supposed to be any children. He said, how many children do you think are in there? I said, I'm not sure. I'm being told by other victims. Could be 1 or 2, maybe 3. He said, okay, well, I'm going to make the search warrant really easy for you. If you go there with the police and a judge and you find even 1 child, Michael is to be taken into custody immediately. We conducted the search warrant. Michael escaped and hid under his car. He was aided by his directors. who lied to authorities, and rather than face charges, because the older group that had done the charges and he was in jail for the 237 days, because I went and appealed to Casimir and said, look, the whole world is watching this. Right now it looks like Haitians don't care about their children. You have to do something. I know it was a technicality with the Roosevelt situation, but at the end of the day, your job is to protect Haitians from these types of predators.
But
so you have to allow an appeal. And so that group, not my younger group, another generation before them, they went to the appeals court and they showed up every day. Michael was subpoenaed. He didn't show up because he was afraid on my arrest warrant he would be taken into custody, because he was supposed to be. Aknam Damius is the one who...
Damius?
Yes.
Michael is a U.S. citizen.
Correct.
And Haiti is a sovereign country.
Correct.
They cannot declare him a persona non grata and kick him out of the country and not allow him to come in?
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because my arrest warrant, or the arrest warrant that I was involved with securing, led to a red Interpol arrest warrant. But I went to the embassy to say exactly all these things. Believe me, I mean, I've been around the block. Okay, this is not a quick story. And I met with Citizen Services and Ashley Bordner. And I also met with Bert C. He's the security agent for the embassy, separately. And I said, look, this is an American whose children are in danger around him. Like, you have to do something. I feel like I'm responsible as well. And she said, okay, we're going to look into it, whatever. Well, I got the courtesy email from her supervisor saying that the arrest warrant, which is good for 10 years, it's rape, sexual aggression, and abuse of title in Haiti. It's expired, much like a parking ticket would expire. And I said, I'm sorry, if you're collecting a diplomatic salary and you don't know that the criminal charges, arrest warrant is good for 10 years, then you need to step down from your job and give it to someone who really cares. And I said the same thing to Bert C. So rather than face charges, knowing he would go back to jail, and in the Napoleonic Code, when you are picked up for the same crimes you were originally put in for 237 days, they don't talk to you. You're over there, and we'll get you maybe when we figure it out, okay? Because you're back, because they have this thing, ordonnance de renvoi, where he promises, I love Haiti, I'll die in Haiti, I'll never do anything.
Well, he's going to die. He's going to die. He's going to die. Guys like that can't continue to
run
on children.
No. So rather than face those charges, he had already set up with his boyfriend, Brunel Ezra, who stabbed one of my victims in the clavicle out through here, and he almost died. And he also he shot, and I can't think of the rapper's name, at the Kenam Hotel. He shot a rapper in the face and stole his because he's on drugs. He's just whacked. And he ran away to the Dominican Republic in a place called Anamuya, where they opened up an orphanage. And the orphanage is not licensed, and it's full of children of Haitian refugees. Why do you think you would pick Haitian refugees? And because they don't have probably papers and a reason to stay there, so not going to have any problems. So what I did is I went and I met with the authorities in the Dominican Republic in Santo Domingo. I met with, because remember the embassy had told me that he had, the arrest warrant had expired. So it was a relief to meet with Interpol and the law enforcement. They said to me, Valerie, no one has handed us a complete situation like this. Like, this is unbelievable. This is unheard of. And we want to confirm that the red Interpol arrest warrant is valid and your arrest warrant is valid. So isn't that interesting that the embassy had given me false information in writing?
So what I can see is the American Embassy, which, by the way, make sure that I'm sending this interview, to someone at the embassy in Haiti. Because they need to know that this has got to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to make sure that people in the Haitian government get to see this. Because it's got to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Got to stop. You've seen the picture. We've aired the picture while we were doing the interview of this gentleman. Where is he now?
So the Dominicans picked him up in Anamuya. First of all, Anamoya is an interesting place. It's where the Clintons golf. It's where John Travolta is. It's where Jennifer Aniston has a house there. A lot of big name people have a house there. When I told they said, do you know where he is? I said, well, I'm told, because my victims are following him because they want justice, and I want them to have justice. And they said he's in Anamoya. So when I mentioned it to the authority says there's no way he's in Anamoya. There's no, that's a very expensive area. There's no orphanages over there. I said, I don't know. I gave the ID badge of the boyfriend, who's also wanted in Haiti. And this is what I know. So 10 days later, they apprehended him at the market with his boyfriend. The boyfriend was so bold as to take on Dominican police officers, so they took him into custody because he just didn't shut his mouth because he has no sense. They were held for 3 weeks. The boyfriend was held for longer. They contacted Homeland Security. Homeland Security didn't have funds to go send someone down there to pick him up because he's in violation of the Protect Act of 2003. Aside from the Haitian, because the Dominican Republic and Haiti does not have extradition, so it's a little bit of a sticky wicket. However, in that instance, according to the according to Interpol, the protocol is you give him to his home country. His home country in this case would be the United States. He was born in Iowa. So they waited and they waited and they waited, and I said, look, I'll pay Homeland Security's ticket to go down there. They said, you're not allowed to do that, Valerie. I said, my heart can't handle this for the victims because they're re-victimized every single day. And what's not right here at 123 Main Street in anywhere United States of America is not right at 123 Main Street in Port-au-Prince, in Santo Domingo, in Frankfurt, Germany, in Toronto, Canada. That's my opinion. All children matter to me. I don't care what color you are or whatever. I mean, they're the future. I think as a Christian, I think...
We only have a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Where's Michael now?
So Michael was apprehended and he was dropped. The Americans didn't pick him up and the Dominicans didn't want him. He's a hot potato. They can't drop him off. They could bring him to the border and throw him away because we know that they did that to Clifford Brandt. So we know it's possible, but in this instance with an American, didn't want to do that. They brought him, armed officers, Dominican officers, brought him to JFK and dropped him off there where he was met by his attorney, Oberketter, and he was traveling with his assistant, Renee Dietrich, and then they continued on to Colorado. His whereabouts right now, not sure. He has been located on Bremen Beach near Jacmel, which there's a lot of orphanages.
Do you think he's back in Haiti?
I don't think he's in Haiti, but I think he can get in and out of Haiti, and he has a lot of connections.
Well, this picture is up. Mm-hmm. Anybody there, see him anywhere. In fact, I want people to know how to reach you. Mm-hmm. Your organization is a nonprofit organization. You depend on funds, mm-hmm. on donations and mm-hmm. organizations. So give a number mm-hmm. and an email or how they can reach you mm-hmm. and a website mm-hmm. or whatever. And go ahead and that's your camera and mm-hmm. talk straight to them. Go ahead, Valerie, because this is extremely important.
So ICRAS can use your help in any form that you could imagine. We're looking for volunteers. We're looking for fellow advocates. All children matter to us. You can reach me at VAL, cells, SELLS, ATL, @gmail.com. I answer all my emails. You can reach me on my cell phone at any time. Anything to do with this case, I will take the call. It's 678-313-8437. You can check us out on our website. It's www.icras8.com. And I hope you can help us bring justice to these victims. Every day, these victims are re-victimized with this man running free, and it's just not fair.
Do you think this election coming up in November is important for this type of sex trafficking and all these issues happening in Haiti? Do you think that the election, Democrat or Republican, can have an impact?
Well, President Trump has really hit this pretty head on. He's got, I believe, 9 or 10 executive orders changing the way things are done. Of course, we've seen from the Epstein case that was prosecuted out of the Justice Department.
They still killed him. They still killed him so he couldn't talk. So they still got him.
Correct, but now they have the girlfriend who knows everything as well, and so hopefully
they're going to kill her.
I think so.
She's done. She's not going to talk.
So it's very ugly.
We know about people who don't like the Clintons, and when they talk, they want to talk, they get killed. Our good friend,
Clyde Abervine.
Clyde Abervine. So it's very dangerous. You're in danger. You know, and it's not just in Haiti. They know they can take care of business anywhere. They have that kind of money.
They do, and they are soulless, and they have no heart, and that's why they're able to function.
That's what concerns me. If the Democrats win the election in November, Clintons are back in power, because they may not be president or they may not be Secretary of State, but their people, that their army will stay there. And since Biden is basically a puppet at this point, you know, and we know, I mean, Hillary was speaking at the Democratic Convention. That's how the power she still has. She's done. She's a has-been. She's not the future Democratic, but here she is. Here she is speaking as a pillar of society. No, this is crazy. So that is one of my major concerns. If the Democrats come to power, the next time there's a earthquake or a hurricane that hits Haiti, let's call the Clintons, because that's their territory, and we get screwed all over again. Valerie, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Will you come back with some progress? And we want to know anything that you have, confirmed information about orphanages in cities. We have our people here. We have Haitians from all over Haiti that are watching this channel, from Port-de-Paix to Cape Haitian to Mirebalais to Jacmel. And if there's an orphanage that you suspect to have an issue, our people here have relationships in those cities, and they'll want to stop it. But only the locals can handle this. Let's go in there and see what's going on, because sometimes you need a legal document to stop an organization. Sometimes you need a couple of guys with a couple of baseball bats and to break some legs, and then you get the same thing done. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I think needs to happen.
There's a lot of angels in Haiti that have helped me on this journey. There's a lot of good people. I know the Haitians are very good people. Like I said, I adopted 2 boys. I'm a Haitian mom. I'm going to be a Haitian grandmother someday. I take this very seriously. I'm very proud of my group of victims that I advocate for, because they, like I said, they're Dessalines kids. Totally, 100%. It's do or die. They put their life at risk. They've done everything. I'll leave you with this. So, a seasoned law enforcement general in the Dominican Law Enforcement Agency, the whole way driving from Santo Domingo to Higüey, he said, "Valerie, why do you care? You live in Atlanta. You got your own kids. These are little black kids. Like, what do you care for?" I said, "Well, all kids matter to me. I love them all." And I said, "You meet these guys and you tell me, then you'll understand why I fight so hard for them. They are my heroes. They're extremely brave warriors." And then on the way back, it was a different conversation. Here you have a seasoned general, probably been there, done it, seen a lot of stuff in his career, wiping his eyes, because one of my victims said, "We don't understand. We've done everything. We've been examined by a psychiatrist. We've seen 3 different doctors. We've been in front of instruction judges. We've been to Gédéon. We've been stabbed. We've been threatened. We've been to the DCPJ, the protection of minors, which is totally corrupt, all collecting millions of dollars, and you're the only one that's still standing. They haven't pushed you over. They haven't bought you out. I don't have a price. To me, these guys are the future of Haiti. These are the ones that are going to rebuild Haiti.
And they better kick some ass, because they got to get rid of these people.
Yes.
One last thing. An estimation of the number of victims that Michael had sexually raped, you believe, in all the time they spent in Haiti?
So in the over 30 years, it's hard to tell. He did, prior to coming to Haiti, he traveled all the typical trafficking areas like Laos, Vietnam, India. So he's been around the block every 2 years. I did speak to a Monsignor Forson at the Reformation House in Los Angeles that Michael claimed to have been at, and There's a lot of stories that Michael claims that just can't be verified. Monsignor Forson said there's no way the story holds truth. I also went to the Brothers of Pele in City Soleil and met with them. They couldn't verify that he was MC Missionary Charities brother. He claims he was the first American brother with the Missionaries of Charity.
Give me the number of your estimated victims.
We believe, advocates believe, that it's probably north of 1,000 victims.
So here I have a man who's raped children, maybe 1,000 or more, and he's still running around.
Yes.
Is castration still allowed? Because I mean, I would take a rusty knife right now, and I would take care of that because I think it needs to be done.
Yeah.
Valerie, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna have to answer that question. I'm gonna save
Thank
you
you.
that. I hope you come back.
Yes.
And I'm sorry that the subject was so sad, but you gotta wake up, guys. Faut nous ouvrir nous pour comprendre ça qui a passé dans le pays. Faut nous suspendre, faut nous arrêter moun yo, faut nous pas quitter moun sa yo, continuer. Thank you so much. On va tourner une autre émission de Mosaïque très bientôt. À bientôt.